Life changes. Sometimes it's like a gentle breeze flowing through the window and you see the curtains moving. And other times it's like being shoved out of the back of a pickup truck at 80 miles an hour. About 30 years ago, I had one of those moments. It wasn't something that I ordered. It wasn't something that I paid for. And it certainly wasn't something that I signed up for. You know the old story of the pastor and the secretary and those things that happen? Well, I was the wife in that story, and no one sent me the memo. It just happened. And I was kind of caught off guard. I wasn't quite sure what would happen. It was somewhere between my life falling apart and finding out that, I was page 6. Everybody open up your hymnals now to page 6 so we can read the latest gossip for the month, and all the ladies in the church were gossiping. And I was left with nothing. I didn't have an income, didn't have a car. I had 4 kids that were hungry. 4 kids that needed some stability in their life. And their mother was a wreck, could barely get out of bed. And my friends, the church ladies, for some reason I wasn't included in the tuna casserole weekly delivery van, Somehow, infidelity is a disease that is viral, and I was obviously patient 0. No support at all. But you can't stay there. You have to get up. You have to move. You have to get a job. The bills need to be paid. The kids need to be fed. But to get a job, you need a car so you can get to the job. And I got a car, the only one I could afford. A beat-up, rusty Volkswagen Bug with no heat in January in Pennsylvania, and cold as, my mother would say, a witch's tit in Alaska. Very demure. She was so demure. So, okay, I've got my car. First problem, how am I going to defrost the windows on this car? Well, my library card wasn't going to cut it, scraping the ice off the inside of the window. So my son and I came up with this wonderful idea. I don't think the professionals would have agreed with the idea. They would probably have called it a fire hazard. But we set up what we called the seance solution. Across the dashboard of the Bug, 4 candles. Lit those candles, wrapped our scarves around our neck, and took off. The car was running. I was getting those gears going. And you could just barely see out of the window through those holes that we had made in it. And every time we went around a curve, the candles would slide. And when I would stop, the candles would slide. And as I would change gears, the candles would slide. And my son's job was to catch them. Change gears, stop, slow down, catch that candle. And he would dive like he was Brooks Robinson, catching a slam right down the third baseline, catch him every time. He was just heroic and wonderful and dramatic and scared shitless, But we managed to do it. So we're driving up the Susquehanna Trail from New Freedom. No way I was getting on 83. They would catch me for sure. So we're driving up the trail, looking through those spaces in the window. And it was just enough so that I didn't drive through a snowbank into Narnia. I could just barely see where I was going. So we're making our way up the trail. And seriously, if you've never driven up the Susquehanna Trail, looking through little patches of light in your windshield, trying to stay between the lines, you haven't lived. I mean, this is something you just need to try. But we did it, mile by mile, little bit by little bit, we made it. And as I was pulling up to the school where he went, the Christian School of York, we kind of took the candles out of the window because it's really not a good parenting style to show up at the Christian school with this seance set up on your dashboard, you know, because it looked like we were worshiping the gods and the idols of some kind of a candle company, you know. It's like, but we made it. And every day we made it. And we continued to make it. And we got the confidence. I got a job. I could get there, drop him off at school, and get to my job. And it started to get a little bit warmer. And we didn't need the candles every day. And we didn't have to worry about that. And we got a little bit more confident in what we were doing and what we were doing moving on. And one of the things, looking back at those candles lit across my windshield, one of the things I realized is that as those candles were flickering, they were slowly melting, not just the ice off the window, but that patch of ice in my heart that had developed somewhere between the infidelity and the singing of page 6 in the hymnal, you know? I began to melt and to grow and to get just a little bit better day by day as those candles were melting that fear in my heart. And, you know, we all go through stuff. But I learned that you don't have to be able to see the end of the road. If you can just see that little patch out in front of you and have the bravery to move into that next patch and the next patch and the next patch and keep moving forward, you will reach that place where that moving forward will actually save your life. Thank you.